sounds good.
So I went over a little bit in the chat of how you had changed your regimen on what you were taking, right?
Right.
Okay, so what have you changed? From what he did previously to what you're doing now, what have you changed?
Okay, he was taking 2 probiotics, 2 BioCleanse, and the Mega X Factor 1 at night. And then he did the same with the probiotic and BioCleanse in the morning.
Oh.
And then he did the swim drink, but no, oh yes, and he did Mega X in the morning too.
Okay.
So that's what he did. And now he's doing 4 probiotics at night with 2 Mega X. And then 4 BioCleanse in the morning, and we just got the X Factor, so he's been doing that about maybe a week. And then the Slim as well.
4 BioCleanse in the morning with the Slim and X Factor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And you've done this now for how long? 2 weeks? Is it 2 weeks already?
I'm just thinking here. Let me look back.
Well, let me see when it was.
When did we talk about that? We did change it pretty much right after.
Yeah, when was that? Okay, so March 10th was when we first talked. And we are March 29th today. Yeah, so it's like 10 days. Okay, so and how many X Factors is he taking?
I think 2.
Okay. And only 1 Slim? 1 pink drink?
Yes, 1 pink drink in the morning.
Okay. Any changes since you changed the regimen?
Well, I just asked him that I asked him about that yesterday, and he said, wasn't sure. He said, I'm not going to the bathroom better, but he says, I feel less gassy, maybe. Because he was having so much trouble with feeling gassy and his stomach just hurting and every time he ate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he, just refresh my memory here. He has not used the E's, has he?
We did quite a long time ago. He used some, we did it, I think he was taking, I don't remember how many he took, whether it was 2 or 4 a day, like 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening, I think is what he was doing, but it didn't make any difference for him.
Okay, so then...
That was last summer, right?
I think so, yeah.
For how long?
Oh dear. 1 bottle.
Oh. That's like dipping your toe in the water and saying you had a bath.
I know. Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's just one of those things where you kind of have to know how much, right?
Yeah,
okay,
that's right. And we sort of felt like that. We weren't sure what to do with it, right?
Yeah. We should have done this a long time ago.
We should have. I should have been on the ball, or I just didn't say anything. And so how do you know, right?
Yeah. No, we're always here. That's all good. You're asking now, so that's good. Okay, so tell me a little bit. Okay, so he suffers from fibro, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it was in 2002 the doctor told him that, just because he's had so much trouble with muscle pain and for so many years now. In the last year, he's gone to a lady that does, I can't remember what you call it. It's not chiropractor, it's not really massage. It's kind of a blend of that. Mm. She does specialized stuff. I can't remember the name of it. But she said the last time he saw her, she says, you should get checked for Lyme's.
Ah.
He really felt like he could have Lyme's.
That rings a lot of bells in my brain. You've never done that?
We haven't. My brother is saying, go and get checked. He says, we've got air miles. We'll send you down there to get checked.
So
Because he grew up in Missouri, tick country, right?
Right.
Because I've probably had hundreds of ticks that I've pulled off myself.
Yeah. You probably know a whole lot more about Lyme's than what I ever would, but I have several friends in Plexus that had like a lot of the things that you're talking about. Like, you know, getting a diagnosis for fibromyalgia is like, well, I'm sure you know what that's like. Probably almost impossible, right? Because it just seems like there's
there's sort of the, okay, so you've got muscle pain and they check those pressure points and, well, nothing else is wrong, so this is what's wrong, right?
Yeah, it's either, it seems like it's very vague, or it's, you know, digging, never getting anywhere, right?
Right. Yeah.
I have several friends that had Lyme's so terribly bad, they were like borderline deathbed, right? Organs starting to shut down, liver failure, just like horrid. They were still not being diagnosed. They were still, you know, heeing and hawing. Is it this? Is it that? Never really getting to, it's Lyme's, right? And it's also because, like, when she tells her story, she was a young mom with 5 little ones, and several of these babies she had during the time that she had active Lyme's, right? So the babies also had the Lyme's. She said it's also because it, like, Lyme's presents with what they call like an 800 face disease. So many different symptoms, right? And it almost parallels several different diseases. So it had been so incredibly hard for them to actually pinpoint it and say, yes, this is Lyme's. So they were like traveling to BC to a naturopath doctor there, and the community was doing fundraisers for them, just like desperately trying to get help for her, right? And when she started Plexus, and when she heard several of the other Lyme's testimonies, she did some serious homework, because obviously she had been, you know, trying to find different ways of dealing with this, right? And she went in hardcore, and she literally, within the first year, like, she went and she had done a lot of elimination diets. She had eliminated all sugars, all carbs, like very healthy, very whole foods, had their water checked. They had, I don't even know all, like lots, right? Like everything that she could think of, they had already done. And then when she added Plexus, or when she started, and she basically said it was just another leap of faith, right? She just wanted something. And when she started, she said, she had, in the first 2 weeks, her pain had subsided by 50%. And I was like, how is that even possible, right? Like, first 2 weeks, and she'd been in this, I think she'd had it for 8 years long. And now, like, she just delivered her 7th baby last week. She looks like she's 20, and she works like she's 20. Like, amazing, just like transformation. But it was all those crucial steps that she did leading up to it, right? And then she's been like, she does at least 2 to 3 pink drinks a day. She does extra X Factor vitamins, just still boosting her body. She does, she's very regimented on her BioCleanse and her probiotic. And she's always on the ease. She's always keeping that inflammation down in her body, right? Because inflammation is always that creator of more pain and more pain. So I found that very interesting. I was thinking of you guys when I was chatting with her last week after she'd had her baby, and I said, so how did you do? Like, and she said, oh, Marge, it was a breeze. Like, yeah, she'd had a 6-hour labor, but I'm good. I'm up and moving. And I was like, wow, you know, this is, yeah, it was amazing. I'm wondering if you would do the slim in the morning with the X Factor and the Bio Cleanse, and then add at least, see, the Ease is almost like a dual purpose supplement. If you take it on an empty stomach, it'll target more the inflammation and the pain, right?
Okay.
If you take it with food, because of the enzymes in the Ease, it'll work more with digesting and helping break down the food and break down the gas. And since he has both, I'm almost thinking he could use it for both, right?
Right.
When I started using, I didn't use the Ease for a long time, but when I did, it was mostly because people told me, no, you need to take this when you're like struggling with indigestion and your heartburn and stuff. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that, right? So then when I actually did try it for the heartburn, it's incredible. Now it's in my purse all the time. Like if I eat something that's not really agreeing with my stomach, my Ease goes with my food.
Right.
Yeah, because of the enzymes. Anything.
So is that because you know that food disagrees with you, so you take it while you're eating that food, or is it something that you find out after you've eaten it? Ooh, this isn't working well. I think I'll take some Ease now.
Normally, I have a good idea what my stomach doesn't like.
I guess by this time you
know, like
that.
it's almost most often like the fatty foods, the carby foods, you know, the spicy, the not good for you foods usually.
Well, why don't you give Craig and Marilyn a bit of a breakdown of how you started with Plexus, you and John actually.
I should do that. Yeah. Okay, so I came to Plexus, and you've not heard my story at all?
Not really, no.
Okay. Sometimes I'm repeating myself so often that I'm like, she probably knows all these things.
No, I don't.
Okay, good. So I started in October of 2013 is when I had my first bag of pink drink. I was, at the time I was working full time. I had a kid in college, a kid in high school, and both were working on the side. And our youngest was in middle school. And I had gut issues and digestive issues and muscle issues. I think pretty much all my life. I was like a little weakling. Often, you know, people would call me the runt of the family because I was that little last child at the end. I basically started out of desperation. Like I was desperate because my family, I was really honestly failing my family, and I needed to be able to keep up. So I wasn't sleeping. Anxiety was very high. Now looking back, I never would have, you know, told myself that I had anxiety. But after it was gone, I was like, oh, that's so relieving not to live with that anymore, right? So I started with a bag of pink drinks simply as a leap of faith. And within the first 2 weeks, I slept. And it was just like life-changing to me because I hadn't slept like that since my son was born, which was like almost 20 years ago. And leading into that, I just basically said, I have to have this stuff. Like I have to do something. If this is what it's doing, then I need to go all in. So I signed up very end of December and started with my gut health, and I had IBS. I had severe candida issues. I had a lot of natural health background, but you know how sometimes you're just like always getting things, and like I had the expensive probiotics in my fridge. I had all the omegas, the big horse capsules that I was swallowing every day, you know, like, and it never, I think it maintained me, but it never got to the root of the issue, right? It never kind of got me over that hump and got me healing, right? So I started, and to make a long story short, my husband had severe bronchial double pneumonia in 2002, a month before our last baby was born, which left him with a lot of damage in his lungs, and that turned into severe asthma, like severe asthma. And after all those horrid steroids and antibiotics, his gut was just depleted, right? So he was like always coughing. And if he'd go into his asthma spells where his immune system, well, like if he'd catch a virus or something, it was a guaranteed 2 to 3 months that he would be down. I often thought that he would choke to death because he would cough so much, right? So my goal was, we're all going to get on this. That was my biggest why in the beginning. We're going to, if this is going to work for my gut, it's going to work for his too, right? That was my analogy. My daughter had just gotten married. I think I said she was in college. She was actually done already by then. She got married that fall, and she was pregnant by the time, so she was pregnant in February. Both our oldest 2 kids are celiac. So the year before we found that out. And so we did a lot of diet changes in our house. We had to, like, it was just like thrown at us, and now what, right? So we're big gardening people. We do a lot of our own stuff, and we eliminated tons of foods out of our house. You think that you've already done so much, and yet it seems like it's still not enough, right? So my goal was, my kids, you know, their gut is not good at all. I need to get them on this. So I was the guinea pig, and then I got Sheila on it, and I said to her, you're growing a baby. You have to have this. She was so incredibly malnourished with the celiacs having done so much damage. And it took, she was 20 when she was diagnosed, and Brad was 17. And years, like they had gut issues as kids already, right? So we found out that was a genetic thing that was going on in John's family. So far, I think there's been 15 people in his one family that have been diagnosed with celiacs. So we had a lot of training on that, and did some, they teach about your gut, right? And I think the biggest thing that stood out to me at that time was leaky gut and candida is something they actually talked about, which really was surprising coming from the medical industry, right? But I think the analogy that stuck with me most when I came to Plexus was, this is your gut, and it's made up of tight sections that are supposed to be sealed and keep all your toxic matter inside, because your gut is just your roadway to eliminate your toxic matter. This is your villi, which is your nutrient absorbers, and they're just supposed to move your toxic matter through and push it out, right? So you're absorbing nutrients and you're pushing out the toxins. What happens in leaky gut is this. So where does your toxic matter go, right? And then you're doing this, so your villi aren't working and they're not absorbing nutrients, and that's a fertile ground for candida to just grow, right?
And it's leaking through.
Sorry?
And it's leaking through.
All these toxins are going into your body. Mm-hmm. And often it's interesting to see of where the body will put it. Like if your body's trying to move these toxins out, right? Because it knows that it's a foreign substance. So some people will show up with like arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis and joint pain because it's storing the toxins in the joints. Other people, it's more certain organs. Other people, it's the migraines. It's, depending on where the body chooses to push these toxins, because your gut system isn't pushing them out, right? That was a huge analogy for me when we'd done the training for the celiacs, to know that if I can use Plexus to eliminate the toxins and to get this to happen again, then the other issues should resolve itself too, right? That was my goal in the beginning. So it's been almost 3.5 years now. John started just about 4 months after me. So it'll be 3 years for him in April now. He has been, so I'm going to give you a little bit of picture of his background. He was on 3 different inhalers and almost always the nebulizer for his asthma, for his lungs. See, and that's another thing with people with a lot of candida overgrowth. Often the respiratory system is a huge target. Another one, like the muscles, like when you're talking about fibro and things like that, the muscles are often a target of storing toxins as well. So for John, it was more so the huge candida overgrowth from his pneumonia, and it destroyed his gut, and his lungs were damaged, obviously, right? So nebulizer, and we had inhalers everywhere. Like we had inhalers in the holiday trailer, in the bedroom, in his work truck, in our traveling car, and just like inhalers. And because he'd always be like, he'd start coughing and then he'd be grabbing for an inhaler, and he hated not to have one, right? Well, now this year of March, he's been completely medication free for 2 years. Like not one inhaler, not one antibiotic, not one nebulizer treatment, zero. So he went back to the doctor and did his driver's medical. He has his class 1s, and he did a complete exam to go over all his levels. And he asked the doctor to pull up a flow chart to see where he had been from 2010 to 2016. It was that 6-year period, right? So 2010, he was steadily going downhill. And then in 2015 and 2016, it started going up. And the doctor said, "What are you doing?" Right? Because he saw the chart. And that's what John wanted him to see, was like, I just want to know the difference. And he said, "How old are you?" And John said, "I'm 46. And he said, "We never see this. Like whatever you're doing, you better keep doing what you're doing, because we never see this." Right? And the previous medical had been 2 years before that, and he was borderline blood pressure meds, he was borderline cholesterol meds, and all his asthma meds were there, right? So the doctor said, "Do you need any refills?" And John said, "Have I been in for refills? Do you think I haven't even used the ones that were on file?" And he said, "Yeah, whatever you're doing, keep doing it." So they talked a little bit about plexus, and the doctor said, "You know what? Life is in the gut. Life begins in the gut." So, he got that confirmation from him. My system is better now, I think, than what I was at 15 years old. Like, I think when you start bringing in those good bacteria to the gut and making sure that you're doing the things alongside that also help it, like our diet isn't perfect. I think nobody can live with a perfect diet. That's just too hard, right? But we try to have whole foods, good sources of meat, and then just really cutting back on the sugar and the carbs. That's a big one, especially when you're trying to heal your gut. Our kids, night and day difference. Like all 3 of them, it's hard to put into words. It's super hard to put into words, because at the time, 3 years ago when we just started, our youngest had like severe tonsillitis. So she had rounds and rounds of antibiotics, had the tonsils out, lots and lots of anxiety issues, and just cravings and stuff. And she's been on the product now. She's probably almost 3 years as well. And I just slowly worked our way up with them, right? Like nothing massive, just slowly introduced it every morning. Here you go, have half a pink drink. And then I would up it to a whole one slowly. It's been huge. It's been huge difference. Celiac is irreversible, but the cross-contamination and the effects of it are probably at least 75 to 80% better. Like we still won't ever go and eat wheat. I've been very tempted to try like the Icorn wheat, the biblical strain of wheat. Like I've been really tempted to go that route and try a little bit. Maybe we will one day, but it's still not something that we will be able to ever like fully implement, right? But it's just so much further, because healing the gut takes so much time, right? So I'm going to leave it at that, because I don't want to talk forever, but that's kind of just a little bit the gist of it. So if you have any questions, I'm thinking with doing what he's doing now, I think adding that second slim would be a huge asset for the afternoon, and then adding the ease. I think that's.
Marilyn, have you found that with him changing the time that he's taking his omegas, that that's making a difference? Has he noticed any difference in his tiredness or energy in the afternoon?
I don't know. He really struggles with sleeping at night. He doesn't sleep, it seems like, hardly at all sometimes. And
So
that too goes in spurts. You know, like he'll have about a week or so where he just can hardly sleep. And I think the exhaustion takes over, and then finally he does sleep some. But he can't ever just lay down and sleep. He's always got his neck all propped up and his back because everything hurts so bad.
yeah. So let's say we would do this. Let's say we would start the morning with his pink drink, and then 2 bowel cleanse. He's doing 4, right?
Doing 4 right now, and he's not. His bowels aren't moving real good. And he's frustrated by that.
So sometimes with having too much bowel cleanse can actually cause constipation. Have you tried cutting back? Is that something that might be a possibility? If not, is more than 4 working? Like sometimes with the bowel cleanse, you have to go back and forth, especially according to what you've eaten, because some foods just break down harder than others and take longer to break down. I did a lot of back and forth with the bowel cleanse. Like some days it would feel like, oh, this is so awesome, this is what I'm going to do. And the next day it would just be like, oh, just not working. That's part of the gut healing. And it's also because it's letting go of that old junk in there. And sometimes passing that is incredibly hard. So some days you might need 4, some days you might need 2. Okay. Because of what it's doing in your gut, right? And then if he took...
He was doing 2 in the morning and then 2 in the evening up until now, up until a week or so ago, right?
Right.
Yeah. I would alternate that a little bit and see what works best. Like give it at least a week at a time, but possibly try the, if the 4 in the morning isn't doing enough, try doing the slim in the morning, 2 bowel cleanse and 2 X Factor. Is he willing to add the ease?
He probably would. It's just the expense, right? He's just concerned about the expense.
I know. I understand that.
Yeah.
I think the ease in a continued use, like I've seen people with chronic pain add the ease in as a steady supplement every day. Incredible reduction in pain, because inflammation is a protein, and the ease with the enzymes in it, with the turmeric, is the anti-inflammatory, and then the serrapeptase and the bromelain are the enzymes that go in and break down those proteins. So the slim is anti-inflammatory, and the X Factor has anti-inflammatories in it. And then to add the ease, then you'd really be going at that inflammation. And I think honestly with drinking lots of water and flushing that out, the pain reduction could be huge. But
how much of the ease would he need to take?
Well, it depends on where he's at with the levels of pain. But I've had people do a loading dose in the beginning. So let's say he'd get like at least 4 bottles, and then start with like 6 a day, at least. You know, you can do a whole lot. Sorry?
Would he take them all at once, or would he spread them out through the day?
Yeah. So let's say we did the slim, the 2 bowel cleanse, the 2 X Factor, and the ease together in the morning.
How many E's?
I'd say 3. And then wait a bit before you're eating. Just to let that all kind of absorb. Wait a bit. Like, does he have a break in between? Like, my husband doesn't eat breakfast, but some men do.
My husband can't live without breakfast.
Okay.
He's starving when he wakes up.
Okay. Is it possible for him to take it like in half an hour before he eats?
Probably, yes.
Yeah. I find, like in the beginning, I found that hard because I was also always the person that got up and then I needed to eat, like right away, right? But I found that if I had like a bottle of water by my bed and my products by my bed, I had my pink drink right away, swallowed my pills. By the time I was dressed and brushed my teeth and up and ready, it had already been enough time for me to, okay, now I can eat, right? Sometimes it's just a matter of accommodating your habit of where you're taking them, right?
Right.
Is he gone all day?
Most times, yes.
Okay, so is it possible? This is what my naturopath doctor friend suggested for my husband when John had been on Plexus for almost a year and he got a massive asthma attack. And well, he also contracted a virus, picked up a virus somewhere. And I was so devastated because we had worked so hard on getting him well. Now to go back to antibiotics and steroids, I was just like, that's not happening. We can't do that, right? So I talked to Jessica and she said, well, if you're going to beat it, you're going to have to give the body enough ammunition to beat it. Like you can't expect that you're going to do it with the same amount of what you've been currently giving your body. If you're going to beat something like that, you're going to have to really fight hard. So that's what she suggested, like to do the whole dose in the morning and then to do the same regimen in the afternoon again. So Slim, X Factor, BioCleanse, and the Ease before supper again.
Okay.
And then for night, just the probiotics and the Mega X and give your body rest.
Okay, so at night, the probiotics and the
Mega X. Mm-hmm. Because those two work best together. Like if he's been taking the BioCleanse for night for a while, I found, and a lot of people with a lot of chronic issues find that the magnesium in the BioCleanse actually gives them energy. For me, that was the case. Like I can't take the BioCleanse for night because I'd just be like, whoa, I've got things to do. We're not here to sleep, right? So it's probably a good thing that he's eliminating them from his nighttime regimen. I know there's people that say, oh no, they put me to sleep. And I'm like, nothing ever put me to sleep. So I'm just going to stick with my ProBio and my Mega X because Mega X has the omega-7 strain in it. And that is the that is the mega oil that will actually put your body into the deepest sleep possible. So once his body is used, it takes a while because the first while it felt like I was incredibly tired that I was using them because your body is adjusting to having that much in it, right? But once he's going to have that adjusted a little bit, he's going to be having deeper and deeper sleep. And I think if you were really working on targeting that inflammation, I would add an extra 2 or 3 E's per night as well.
Okay.
To the probiotics and the Mega X.
Even if just for the first, just to get over the first hump, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like 3 to 4 in the morning, 3 to 4 in the afternoon, and then another 3 to 4 in the evening.
Yeah, it depends on, like you want to keep it an amount that your body is actually absorbing and using.
Right.
I think if you did like 3, 3, and 2, I think you'd be good for a while. And then just like be very aware of what's going on that you can, sometimes you'll see like small things that they're doing that getting better is so much easier than getting sicker, right? And I just know like for John, like he didn't notice how much less he coughed until I actually said, do you know that I heard you cough twice tonight? That's it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
and you don't, and it was same for me, like, with always being such and so terribly exhausted, like I had chronic fatigue. All of a sudden I was doing a whole bunch of things and I had just done them. It wasn't like I was forcing myself to do them. It just came naturally, right? Because you're feeling better. So it's good to be aware of what's going on and mentally keep notes to see, yeah, actually, you know, today I did sleep good, or like to be aware, right?
The other thing that scared me when I first started was I had been watching or listening to an interview, a podcast interview of somebody interviewing a naturopath doctor, and she was explaining how all these autoimmune diseases, which is like the fibro and the gout and arthritis, all these things, right? And or even with the thyroid, especially the thyroid. Mm-hmm. And people would get one of these things and they're like, oh, it just consumed them, right? It just overwhelmed their lives. But said the scary part is that once you get one, they start piggybacking. Like once you get one, then it's like the chances of you getting more autoimmune diseases are that much greater.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to get it under control before it boomerangs and it just explodes. And that's what it sounds like with Craig. Like that's what it's doing. It's just compounding.
Mm-hmm. You know, that
how do you get control?
Yeah, that's very, that whole analogy of when Jessica said to me, you're going to need a lot of ammunition, right? Because when we're fighting with something with doing it naturally and you want your body to be doing it, like essentially all we're doing here is giving the body the nutrition to do the work, right? It's not like we're using the pills for the symptom. That's the medical industry. The medical industry uses the pills for the symptom. We're trying to give the body what it needs to build it up and then do it on its own. And I think that visual just always stuck with me is if you have a war to fight, you're going to need the proper ammunition, right? You're going to need to have the proper tools to do so. Often people with not achieving the results that they want is because it's not altering your regimen or not taking enough, and also by water and diet. So if you're looking at, you're putting all these supplements into your body and you're wanting it to flow and you're wanting it to flush out, water is your key ingredient, right? To drink that water. I always struggle with that. That's something I have to have in front of me, else I'd go all day without drinking water, right? It's just something I have to make myself to do. And then the other element is, what else are you feeding the body? So these high quality supplements are actually just food. They're plants, right? So it's high quality food. What is your other food like? Is that also high quality so that you can put them together and fight together? Or is one fighting against the other one, right? So that's always a big one of where it's hard to have a totally clean diet. I'll be the first one to admit that, you know, you want to go to a restaurant and have a nice meal. But I think being aware of carbs and sugars is probably the worst of your evils, right? If you can start replacing those in certain places and do it one step at a time. Like eliminating them all at once is incredibly hard. But if you're doing it one step at a time, removing slowly, and then like I taught myself, I'm not a baker or a cook. It's not my strong point. Some Trim Healthy Mama desserts, you know, that were very blood sugar friendly, and they didn't have the amount of carbs, and you still had a really good dessert. So you're still having those things, but it's not the evil one, right? Maybe.
So how do you find the block working? Like, do you use that a lot in your household?
No, we don't. Well, John's used it for a while, but we don't, because the amount of carbs, like we've eliminated so many carbs, like, because we never have pastas. We have rice quite a bit, but more so the brown rice. And we have potatoes. That's definitely a starch right there. Not a whole lot. I think we'd be better off using the block for if we have those desserts and sugars and stuff. That would probably
Or
be.
pastas.
Or what?
Okay, I see. Or pastas. But
yeah. I don't know. Is that sounding doable to you, Marilyn? Is it sounding like something that you can?
Yeah, I think so. Because most times at work, he would be able to take the slim and the, you know, that same regimen that he takes in the morning. He would be able to do that at work most times.
It took us 2 weeks. Like when John got his massive episode there, I really dug in my heels. I followed him around. It's like, here, swallow this. Here, drink this. I was so determined. Like, please do not go back to prednisone. It's so awful, you know. But it took him 2 weeks, and he completely fought it on his own. There was a couple of spells where it was really questionable whether we would be able to or not. But I think your mindset, once you've made up your mind, this is going to work, and you put your mindset to it and you speak positively about it, we're going to get this to work. It's, you know, it's working. We're using the right tools. That alongside of that is a huge asset as well. Like if you're constantly questioning whether what you're doing is right, is probably going to be degrading your body as well. Because you're like looking for all the negative things, not the positive ones, right? And things like that. So if he'd be like coughing, I'm like, oh, you're getting better. I know you are. But and he did, right? And then after he got over that massive spell on his own, that gives you so much, that gives you that sense of power, you know, like it just like, see, we've truly made progress because look at what I was able to do, right? So we haven't had any medical issues since then that we've ever had. Even we don't even use Tylenol. We just have the ease. It's a process.
Yes, Craig uses a lot of Tylenol because he continually has headaches and pain. And so I'm concerned about that because I know Tylenol or acetaminophen, you know, destroys your liver and just a lot of bad stuff with that.
And that's definitely another thing that is just going to set back the products from working because especially like the pink drink works on flushing your toxins out of your liver, right? So if you're constantly adding more toxins every day, it's just never really getting anywhere. It's almost like walking on a treadmill, right? So if you could like adding the ease to see if that would take away some of the headaches, it might slowly work on that. Adding that extra pink drink could be a double asset to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I will talk to him about it and see if he's willing to go for that.
For sure, for sure. Well, I'm rooting for him. I know that it made such a huge difference for us, and I've seen other people, you know, come through some pretty hard things. You just gotta stick with it and fight.
Yeah.
I know where he's coming from because it's been almost a year that he's been using the products, and with seeing very little results, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes it's that constantly stirring the pot, right? Never letting the dust settle. So maybe if we can change it up, get the regimen going a little bit differently and see how that will target it, it might make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I sure hope so.
Yes, I do too.
Well, we'll give it a shot if we can and
good.
See what happens.
Well, I'm not going to keep you long. It's supper time. So I am going to, this has to download onto my computer and then I'll just pop it in the chat for you guys. You can just keep it there, I guess, if you want to. If you want to show it to him. Awesome.
Sure, sounds good. Thank you so much, Marge and Sarah.
You are more than welcome. And then keep us posted on how you're doing.
Okay.
Like,
I will
at
do that.
least in a few weeks or in a month or so, I'd like to hear how he's doing.
Yes,
All right.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a good night, ladies.